How's it going, guys? So today we are gonna take these awesome cars out on the road with the help of a police escort. How cool is that? We've got a 911 Carrera S Cabriolet, Audi R8 V10, and a California T. Let's hit it. So I'm here in a new 911 Carrera S with my new friend Sean. I actually haven't driven one of these in a PDK before. I drove a 911 Carrera S with a 7-speed manual and had an absolute blast with that. But kind of the big deal for this new generation of 911s is that this is a turbocharged engine. So no longer is the Porsche Turbo and the GT2s and GT2 RSs the only turbocharged cars that they make. We've got a turbocharged 3-liter flat 6. So 420 horsepower in the Carrera S, 368 pound-feet of torque, a lot more than the previous generation. But the question is, does it still sound good and drive well? Wow, pretty minimal lag. Obviously transmission options, 7-speed PDK or 7-speed manual. Definitely the manual is the way to go. This car is pretty stripped down, but the crazy part is just a Carrera S with the PDK. PDK adds about 3,500 bucks. You're already well over 100 grand. I'm talking about around $119,000. Pretty expensive. Driving 3 cars today that are actually somewhat similar in a way. We've got the Carrera S, the Audi R8. The one that's behind me is a non-V10 Plus, so a little bit more refined. The V10 Plus is basically identical to a Huracan. All the lap times and the acceleration is spot on. I mean, same transmission, same engine, same pretty much everything other than the body and the price. And then behind that, we have the California T, which personally is my least favorite Ferrari that they've ever made. But apparently, with the new turbocharged engine instead of the naturally aspirated non-T California, it's got a lot more power, so maybe I'll like it. I've driven a 997 Carrera S quite a bit with the sports exhaust, and it's louder, sounds more aggressive, higher pitched, and definitely rides harder and has harsher steering. This has electronically assisted steering, which to some Porsche people means it's the end of the world. Obviously, it's not an air-cooled motor like the 993s, but I think it's much more of a grand touring sports car than it is an all-out sports car. In Carrera S form really isn't raw whatsoever, which was more of the case with the older cars. The one thing I will say that Porsche does that BMW is starting to lose is keep the weight down. I mean, this weighs only 3,250 pounds roughly, which for a modern car is really, really light. I mean, M3s are now getting into the 3,500, 3,600 pound range, and I think they're just going to get heavier and heavier. And you've certainly got a lot more power and torque, but it doesn't feel as fun to drive as the older ones. That being said, the lap times and the acceleration that these cars are able to do is absolutely out of this world. I mean, with the Sport Chrono package, which this doesn't have, and launch control, you're talking 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds, which that's pretty wild for a almost base car. That's definitely one thing that Porsche's always been able to do, is maximize acceleration and performance around corners with limited horsepower. I mean, when you think of nowadays where you can buy a Hellcat or a Dodge Demon with 700, 800 horsepower, it seems like 420 horsepower in a Carrera S or much less than that in a normal Carrera doesn't seem like very much, but they're able to do a lot, especially thanks to this PDK gearbox. Dumps the clutch at 5,000 RPMs for launch control, which doesn't sound as good in this car. And a new GT3 sounds absolutely wicked, especially with an aftermarket exhaust. Well, I guess we're taking a little break and switching cars. Switching back to the vlog camera, we're doing a little rest stop here. Let's listen to the way the exhaust sounds. I haven't really given it the full beans yet. Let's see, from a standstill. Not bad, but not that freaking piercing flat 6 that you're used to hearing in a naturally aspirated Carrera S. Bummer, honestly. But unfortunately, with raising the government standards for fuel economy, I mean, that's not unfortunate, but it has some consequences, and that means downsized boosted engines. Let's take a look at the exterior. It's definitely a good looking car, and you can easily tell the current generation with the tailpipes being in the center of the car. I'm not sure if I'm completely in love with the design, but Porsche has basically kept very, very, very similar stylistic cues and just kind of improved or tweaked upon that for the generation. I will say they haven't changed the interior much from the 997. I really do think it's time for a complete redesign of the Porsche interior. Potentially moving towards a digital dash, although keeping it analog is a pretty cool way to differentiate itself. But I'm curious with the Volkswagen Audi group whether that's coming in the future. Sean informed me of the bespoke iPhone 7 Plus holder that they have, thanks to the air conditioning module. Perfect. Just finished up in the 911. I like the car, it's comfortable, but it's not as raw as the old ones. I like it, but I don't love it. Next up, we're going in the R8 V10. I'm not gonna focus too much on the R8 as I have already done a review on it. So if you haven't seen that, click the link here. But it's a nice car. It's nowhere near as intense in this form as the Huracan. This is not a V10 Plus. I was hoping to get into the Plus, which basically completely transforms the car into a Huracan just with the lower price tag. These comfort seats are too comfortable and not nearly supportive enough. They look nice, good quilting. Check out the power and torque meter there. Little summary of the R8 V10. Fantastic engine response. The transmission is beautiful. Steering's a little bit too light. The paddles, I don't know why they're made of plastic. That was a huge mistake. These tires are fun though. One issue we have been noticing about the California T is it's been scraping a lot over some undulations. The suspension compresses and the middle of the car is hitting the ground, which didn't happen on the Porsche or the R8. The other issue is, now it's a little bit more expensive than the California T, but the Aston Martin DB11 is very similar to the California in terms of its GT qualities, but that's more powerful, better looking, and I don't know, I think it has a nicer interior too. All right, I am in a California T for the first time. I'll be honest, when I see these on the road, I kind of feel sorry for their owners, just because of the connotation that the California T kind of has and has represented. My biggest gripe with Ferrari is that if someone like me who hasn't owned a previous Ferrari, doesn't have a relationship with a dealer, I can't just go out and buy a 488. When they first came out, you would have to buy a California T first, and then wait 18 months to get a 488. Well, I don't want a California T. I wanted the 488, but that's not really an option. So they have this kind of idea about them that they're like the unwanted child that you're forced to buy, and that Ferrari potentially can't even sell them without forcing people to buy them. However, that's just stuff I've made up in my head prior to driving the car. So today I'm going to find out exactly what it's like. Now, when both of us hopped in the car, the first thing we noted was it's pretty luxurious in here. It feels a lot more like a luxury car than a sports car, and definitely the driving experience, a lot more body roll than the R8 or the 911. Steering feels pretty good though. 7-speed double clutch transmission, 552 horsepower, 557 pound-feet of torque, but interestingly, the 557 pound-feet is only available in 7th gear. Other than 7th gear, it only has 443 pound-feet of torque. That decision, I'm curious why Ferrari chose to do that, but we are in sport mode. Throttle response is, wow, pretty instant. Definite during the lower RPMs before the turbo spool. You get that surge when it gets into the boost. Not quite as linear power, a little bit of lag, but it's got a lot more horsepower and way more torque than the previous car. I kind of like this thing.
I like the torque output too. Just don't like the seats.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the seats offer pretty much zero support.
Yep.
Of course, rear seats completely useless, but that's true of any car in this category. It's more extra storage space, or put your children back there. A lot of modern sports cars, even ones that are meant for the track, seriously suffer from headroom issues. I remember driving the Viper ACR on the track, although that doesn't even close to compare to a California T, but a car that's designed to be driven on the track, if you wear a helmet, you don't have a prayer of fitting. You've got to sit the seat way back, lean it. In the California T, he's 6'1", I'm 5'11", and we have, my seat's almost all the way up, his is all the way down, and I still have plenty of headroom. And that's with the convertible, where usually you end up suffering from headroom issues. A lot of times with getting a sunroof option, you get that little extra space. Obviously not possible. Actually, the craziest part about the California T has nothing to do with the California T and everything to do with the fact that we are going 100 miles an hour on a back road legally, because the CHP officer is giving us an escort and is absolutely flying down these twisty roads.
You gotta give it. He knows how to drive.
He is driving like an animal. That's awesome.
And he's on a Ford Explorer.
Exactly. I mean, we're not driving super fast or close to the limits of these cars, but we're definitely going pretty fast through some of these turns. And for a Ford Explorer, freaking police spec to be doing that, that's wicked. Now, turning off the indicator for the speed warning would be nice, but I don't imagine that's something we'll be able to figure out at speed. 0 to 60, 3.6 seconds, plenty fast to put it into the category of quick accelerating cars. The V8 still sounds really good for being turboed. Has a much lower tone to it. Same with the 488. The 458 had a much purer sound and then had that high revving characteristic. This thing revs to 7,500 RPMs, which is quite a bit lower than you're used to seeing on most Ferraris, but not too low. Massive center tachometer, very classic Ferrari. The speedo, the way my steering wheel is positioned, is basically entirely blocked. It's very small and off to the right. Doesn't really matter how fast you're going in a California T though. Predominantly, I've seen these cars driven by women, actually. Could be the perfect trophy wife vehicle. Can't imagine my future wife. That would be pretty wicked, buying her a white California. So future wife, whoever you are, maybe. Got a decent amount more torque than the R8. And the paddles compared to the R8, much larger, and they're made of metal instead of plastic. Feels super nice to the touch. Kind of Ferrari's, one of their specialties is the actuation of the automatic gearbox. Well, I guess double clutch gearbox. Roof operation happens in 14 seconds, which for today's standards even is pretty fast. I imagine driving this with the top down is quite the experience. Visibility wise, got tons of visibility out of the back, and same with over the shoulder. So in terms of confidence and safety and just feeling comfortable on the road, it's pretty good. So I would say, coming into this, pretty underwhelmed with the idea of a California T, but it drives well. Ferrari now offers, although they had this on the original California, but it's better now, the handling special package that makes it much sharper. This definitely does not have that, but if you're looking for a California that's a little bit more brutal, that's definitely something to think about. Knowing Ferrari, that option costs infinite amount of dollars. Well, there you have it. It's comfortable, it's luxurious in here. The steering and the paddle response is fantastic. Tiny bit of lag, but it's fast. Sound is not as good as the old one, but that's unfortunately the way cars are heading in the future. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. I've probably annoyed the crap out of Sean Lee at this point. I look forward to seeing you next video.